morning. It's Judges Jules and I have Simon Holden here helping me out with at least 5 for your tracker, but I'm not going to give you a little Brucey bonus. We're going to have 6 this week. How are you, Si? How did Aintree treat you?
I'm great. You accused me of looking miserable earlier, Judge, but now I'm
you look a lot happier
of the
now.
joys of spring. I'm heading to Newmarket tomorrow for 2 days, and then I'll be heading to Thirsk on Saturday.
Right.
And then I'm heading to Wembley on Sunday to the FA Cup semi. So I might be having a lie-in on Monday morning. But yeah, it's going to be a very busy week. But really excited to get to Newmarket. I think I've written in my column this morning that we all love the Lincoln, all of bits and bobs, Newbury and whatever. But I don't know about you, Judge. I always think the flat starts today. First day.
I do, and you just got the national finished now, haven't you? So you've got exactly. Past the national. It's flat racing now, and I know we got this Scottish national on Saturday, but for me, I mean now I can start looking flat racing mode for me in that respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So great stuff.
What was anything to report from the weekend? Or do you want to say anything, or do you want to say anything about the Aintree meeting in total?
We're all racing fans. I think we've got to come out on the front foot. The kind of dog on a string brigade will never be convinced they want racing banned. And I would just say this to anybody in racing. Be very, very careful when you appease them. Because now I suspect that's the last maximum field national. I think Aintree will appease them, lower the runners.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll just pose you a scenario, Judge. They drop it to 25 runners. Sadly, 2 are still killed. That's going to happen. What they're going to do then? Drop it to 16, 10?
Yeah. Oh, it's...
There's an inherent risk.
Yeah, I do. Look, there. I think at the end of the day, the biggest problem I always used to think, I think at the end of the day, speed kills, and I actually didn't think lowering the fences. I think pushing in the brook, definitely, because I don't think you can teach a horse to jump and something's on the other side. But I think if you going slower, because obviously you've got to go slower to jump a fence bigger, haven't you? So, and what they've done with the fences in terms of making them, they give a little more, don't they? Which is a lot better. They've done all those kind of things, but I think actually lowering the fences used to make them go off faster.
My view is that the horses were already stressed out and on their toes.
I agree.
It's entirely the fault of the protesters. When they got to the start, I'm thinking, please, jockeys as well.
Well, this is the thing, if you're on edge.
The start is a farce now.
Yeah.
And has been for years. So they must work that out. Now, somebody said to me about starting stalls, and I laughed at first.
Yes.
Now, but I tell you what, not traditional starting stalls, but something that even if they were put into groups of 4 and 5 and told you stand there behind this line, and then some barriers, some system that not classic flats starting stalls.
A bit like harness racing.
That measured it out. Yeah. Because at the moment, they're all buzzed up. We have 2 to 3 false starts. They have to get going and come back, and they go too quick. And that is what is causing these fatalities at the first. It was in many ways an old style Grand National.
It was.
Where you had the cars. We haven't seen that for a few years. No. And the idea that racing fans want horses to be killed, we've got to fight back against that. The life of the racehorse is worth living. If they want to protest about animal cruelty, racehorses are well down the queue on that.
They're treated better than most humans, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't see them in some places. They don't want to know that. And changing sports, how pathetic that now they're targeting the World Snooker. Your old game, Judge. I mean, really, I'm not advocating violence, but if people were there, take matters into your hands. That's all I'm saying.
Can you seriously imagine, that's your one pilgrimage for the year, and you've gone and watched that, and that's happened. So, look, I'm all for protest, but there's protest and protest, isn't there? Really?
Stand for Parliament, but nobody will vote for them, so that's why they do that. So we need to we need to get on the front foot.
Well, I agree. And the other thing that really the festivals, this has really been a bugbear of mine for. I think the only one it didn't really affect last year was York. But what happens is the weather forecast. The weather forecast is the bit I get so frustrated with. They had no rain forecast on the Friday, the Friday. So the course is watering, and then it just doesn't stop raining on the Friday. So then you're running on soft ground, and then the next day it's good ground again, isn't it? So
I couldn't believe that.
I mean, it's so hard. And then you see Cheltenham has exactly the same this year. We had a load of rain one day. And nearly all the flat festivals are the same as well. You know, you see them watering and it. How can they be so far wrong in 2023 with the weather forecast? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough moaning. We've got to find some winners now.
If we go any longer, some guys are going to break into the judges' house,
absolutely.
and chuck a strange yellow paint all over him.
Well, yes, it might improve the decor.
Right.
Anyway, right.
Let's do this.
Crack on. I haven't got anything for the Thursday. I've started Friday onwards actually. Obviously, we had the rain, and I don't know if you remember the last race, the 5:15 on the Friday. That was a real fast, and actually the two really fancied horses went off like lunatics in the conditionals race, and the front two there were Knickerbocker and Knickerbocker Glory. We all like one of those, don't we? And Paramount. The two of them went really hard, and the horse I want to take out from this was a horse called Washington. And it had I believe it had cheek pieces on for the first time. I really fancied this horse. And he seemed to be in the right position because obviously he was the first one to pick up the pieces when the first two went so fast. But the fact he was the first one there meant he was the one that was taken advantage of, if you like. And I think he ran better than his finishing position. I mean, he came third. He came third in the race last year. He's now a pound or two below his last winning mark. And I do think this is one for possibly, you know, I don't know whether it'll get in the Swinton or something along those lines. It's something that's, you know, before the end of the season, I can see this horse popping up and winning for us. And the Ollie Murphy horse. So that's the first one for me is Washington.
Yeah, interesting race because my column bet that day was JPR1, which did place. It was 5 place races. But like you, they went absolutely insanely quick on the ground. Yeah. JPR1, I thought, well, he's not right at the front, but he was well in touch. He came to beat when there was about 5 or 6, was it 2 out? 5 or 6 across the track. He appeared to be going really well, and I thought we're in here. Then weakened and held on to 5th. So really anything, not just the front two, but anything that got towed along by them was going too quick.
Yes.
And paid for it. So, yeah, classic case of picking up the pieces, the horses that won. Punctuation, no real form, but a very clever ride. Didn't want any of that pace. Hunted them up, let them get on with it, and then just glided past them. Makes you think that could be unreliable, but I do think it's an interesting race. I think JPR won for Joe Tizard thinks that's going to be a hell of a chaser next year. And yours is a horse, Washington, I like. Interesting, but very frustrating racing again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if only you know. I mean, the winner of the race last year, Hacker to Plas, ended up winning 2 or 3 this year. So I think it's normally a race that's won by a horse that's well in front of its mark, if you like, and certainly can follow up. So I don't think it's reliable in terms of the form line, but I do think there'll be 2 or 3 come out the race and win next time. That down the field. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be with the first 2. Yeah. Yeah,
when you get a race like that you know by the finishing positions, by the way it goes, by the fact that a big price horse passes them having just stayed out the back the whole way. The easiest thing to do is say, what a load of rubbish, and just strike the race. But you've got to look a bit deeper than that. And you're right. There were horses that got towed along in that. Washington was one. JPR1 was another one, who probably deserve a second chance after that. They didn't go with the front two, but they got too near to them and they paid for it.
Yeah. Go along with that.
Right. Well, my first run, I want to pick a couple of horses who I think might be out again soon because there's plenty of eye catchers, but we might not see them till October or September, so a lot can go wrong. But I do have a couple. The first ran in the 225 at Aintree on Saturday, the Village Hotel's handicap hurdle. Really strong race. Now you tipped the winner, Judge. Hats off to you there with West Balboa. It was hugely impressive.
No, not guilty. Sorry, not guilty. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. Well, you didn't tip the winner.
No, I didn't. Sorry. Carry on.
Sorry. Sorry. Guilty is charged. Well, somebody tipped the winner anyway. It wasn't me. It wasn't you. No, so let me try to think why I tipped in this race. Oh yeah, I backed Mexico on the Friday,
because you thought it was soft ground again, didn't you?
It was soft ground, and everybody piled in. But
that's right. Exactly.
Don't give up on Mexico. If he gets some soft ground, he's just got a big handicap hurdle in him. But it wasn't going to be on Saturday. He got really outpaced. The horse I think is really interesting, been forgotten a little bit. It's Pounding Poet. 50-1. Now he got well beat by by West Balboa, 5 lengths in the end. But I really love the way he travelled and powered on up that long running. Now, he's beat horses like Mill Green, Gatsby, Grey, Glimpse of Gala, really, really sort of Antelor, Outlaw Pete, Party Business, last year's winner from Ian Williams. This was a really in-depth field, and he's beaten them fair and square. And it was on the surface a huge upturn in his form. He was only 6 at Donny the time before on good ground. I think the key to him, his last 4 runs were on good ground. Now, even though he won a couple of them, he won at Utoxeter in October in a race that's actually worked out quite well. And I think this got forgotten. He beat a horse called Copper Coin of Michael Scudamore's, giving it £1. In third was a horse called Geordie Deschamps, who was favourite that day. It was a big word for that day. And this horse beat them both fair and square, really staying on. Now, if you'd have had a little bit of faith in him and forgiven him what looked a bad run at Donny the time before, you probably could have got interested at 50s and 66 to 1. And then I looked at that race again, and I think he got beat here because the ground was just too quick for him. If you look what he did, towards rear, headway after 8, pushed along, went in touch with leads before 3 out. So he got up there, but then it says weakened. I've looked at that film again. I don't think he did weaken. I think the others just quickened away. Horses like Kansas City Chief, really experienced handicappers who do go on fast ground. And I think that by the first race, there was enough juice in this for him to get away with it still. Horses like Mexico needed it heavy. Their chance had gone. But there was still that little bit of cut. And I just think he's a future chaser. But he's only 7. I suspect Tom Lacey will be hoping that either at Ayr or at Sandown or the last sort of 2 or 3 big jumps events, that there's a little bit of dig in the ground and he can get him. And I'm sure next time out he's going to be too big a price because he's kind of been a little bit forgotten. So Pounding Poet for me, be fascinated to see where he goes. Now, he might not run again. They might keep their powder dry and either go chase him, where it'll be an interesting prospect, so get him in your tracker anyway, or bring him back for an early season handicap hurdle next year. But I think they'll want to get on with things now, and I suspect we'll see him quite soon. If there's a bit of dig in the ground, then I think Pounding Poet, he's got the form to win a very nice late season or early season race. So get him in your tracker. He would be my first one, Judge.
Well, he's quite an interesting, because obviously I studied that race, and I had him on my shortlist as it happens, because he had quite a good entry for me. He was only 12 to 1 to win the race last year.
Yes, he was,
and he was 50s. And he was one of them ones I was very tempted to put a quarter of a point each way up on, so I would have been quite disappointed if he had won. But like you say, you had all the right horses in amongst it. You had the winner. Favourite was the winner. Good Time Johnny. Mill Green, you can set your time, your watch by. All the right horses were there. Form. Absolutely solid form. And interestingly, I've just had a quick look. Last year, he ran in this, like you say, well beat, came 13th in this last year. But interestingly, the following month, he came out and won a handicap hurdle at Market Raisin. So it might be that he might, I can't see the handicapper really putting him up. He might go up £1, but he'd probably keep him off 133. You think they're like you say, I think perhaps next time is the time to catch him. But he's only 7, like you say, and you think there's definitely a race or 2 in him, isn't there? Yeah, good shout. I like that one. So, not that you need a thumbs up from me, mate.
I'd take one from anyone these days.
Brilliant. My second one, it obviously, I think the obvious one. If we look at the novice hurdle, I think this was also on the Friday when the rain came in. The winner was In the Pocket, and Rachel Blackmore lost her whip, and she used the reins, and she got told off by the stewards. Anyway, In the Pocket won the race. Yeah, I mean, it's just madness, isn't it? And everyone would have probably seen with their eyes Strong Leader finishing well. I kind of think that was quite a good run, but he picked the pieces up. But I was more enamoured with the run of Hansard here. Because we were there, if you remember, at Plumpton that day when he beat the one of Twiston Davis's, and you tipped Hansard up that day, and we both said at the time we thought that was a better race than it really showed.
We did, and we mentioned that on the Monday.
Yeah,
on the show.
Yeah, it just shows you, doesn't it? Really, and kind of, it's taken a while for it. Master Chewy, wasn't it? Was the one that comes second.
Yeah.
And that ran okay in the Betfair hurdle afterwards, and that could end up proving to be decently handicapped for next season, Master Chewy. But this horse absolutely tanked into the race because its next run was in the Lanzarote, which Alkenrich won. And Gary Moore does target the Lanzarote because he had a decent horse in the race, unfortunately, that passed away, that ran in the Supreme afterwards, that came second to Alkenrich. So he does like to get a winner of that race, but he pulled far too hard and didn't get home. Because they went a lot quicker here, this horse was much more at home. And providing the handicapper doesn't get too carried away, because he run to an RPR I see there of 145. I mean, the handicapper's got to put him up a reasonable amount. I think there's a decent handicap. I mean, I'm about a good handicap in this horse next year. He's proved here he's nearly grade. That's grade 1. He's proved he's a graded horse, and you could see him doing well off near top weight in one of them 2 mile handicap hurdles next season, couldn't you? For a very shrewd yard. The Moore yards are absolutely flying this season, and especially recently. But I like the way this horse travelled. Didn't quite get home against this top level opposition, but he travelled as well as the winner going to the last. You think, cool, this is going to win, and then it weakened up the running. But he came from last to first to last to second. He was last turning into home straight, so that's a serious move in Grade 1 company. And for me, Hansard is the second one on the old list.
Yeah, if you think that Pembroke was a horse that was fancied for the county hurdle,
yes,
he's beat him off levels 6 lengths. I think you're right. I think he could be a Betfair hurdle or the really good, formerly Ladbroke, the big one at Ascot.
Yes,
I think Moore will target him. You're right for those, but I don't think he'll go in Grady Company. I think he'll target him for those big money handicap hurdles. And yeah, you want to get him on your list. I was really impressed. Lucia, she was getting the mare's allowance in that race, but I thought she put up her career best. Mm-hmm. In the Pocket is a serious Grade 1 horse. The
rain came really helped him, didn't it? Because he's a stayer at the trip. Yeah, I was really confident once the rain came for him, which I wasn't. I love horses coming back in trip, and
a bit further, Yeah. Now, absolutely. One of my questions for this race is, what the hell has happened to Tamoras? Absolutely awful. Yet again, Cheltenham and Aintree. Maybe the horse had too many hard races early season, but that has not gone on at all, and that needs a long, long break. He's out of the way. Yeah, that was a very, very strong race. In the Pocket, I tipped. We were on that. And
so did I.
Oh, you did tip that one, yeah.
Yeah, I did tip that one. Yeah.
Hansard, big handicap hurdle in that next year. And Lucia was a horse I wasn't sure about. But after that race, I think she has got a big handicap in her as well. There's 2 from there. But mighty call there. Now I'm going to go on the Saturday. It's still at Aintree. To a horse that, not the horse, but the jockey's got quite a bit of stick for this. And I think a little bit unfairly. Marie's Rock. Now, ITV were keen to say how short she was in running and how big Cider Burley was. And there were other exchanges. People came online. I think Ed Chamberlain said 200 to 1, did he? Or 66?
It was 200s on Betfair, the winner. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet other people on other exchanges said that they'd got buttons on at 3, all sorts of silly things. Cider Burley obviously won. I'm talking about the Liverpool hurdle that we previewed. Now, I tipped Champ. So I was hoping that they got the colours wrong and given Champ the right. But it wasn't to be. It was 5th. I think Champ now, the ground probably was too quick for him by the time this race went off. I also think he has declined. They tried to bring him back here fresh.
Yeah.
Who knows what would have happened on softer ground, but I don't know. He'll be rising 12 next autumn. He may well have done enough. They've tried him over fences before and mixed results. I would hope that JP will call it quits with Champ, but we'll see. They'll know best. Cider Burley got to be one of the toughest horses in training. If you'd have said last year, Judge, when he was, getting done in handicaps and
he got beaten at attempts, didn't he, before he won this last year?
Yeah, there goes at age 11 the winner of the Stayers and the Aintree hurdle. I think you would have been led away.
Well, they was trying to lead me away for tipping him last time, so yeah, so
yeah,
led away, absolutely.
He dropped his soup and this one again. Oh, Mike, yeah. So yeah, you can't argue with that. Now, interesting race because Florin Porter, we discussed this off air, went. Well, we said them
went too quick.
Yeah, it's all right being a prominent front runner. That's great, but you can't go 2 mile pace 3 miles, however good you are. There's never been a racehorse alive. You know, I don't even think Arkle could have gone at that pace and held on. You know, really, really, honestly, you can't sprint. If you watch the start of this, and Danny Mullins may have thought, I want to get him interested, I want to get him at it, I want to get him a good lead. That's fine, I understand that. But he was like full on sprinting in that first couple of furlongs. This is a 3 mile race. Yeah. So he fell in early. But I think the issue that a lot of people who backed Marie's Rock was, and the ground, of course, came back into her favour, was that Nico did that. What on the surface looked to be the sort of cocky, look how well I'm going, I can press the button at any time, right? But I'm not so sure it was that. We've discussed this. I think he had serious concerns that she would get the 3 miles. Now, what I do agree with is the people that, not the slagging him off, the people who say when he came up to Florin Porter, he did look round as if to say, well, I'm still going really well here. Now, if he'd have seen Cider Burley getting like the usual hard Cider Burley ride, a horse that had been virtually tailed off, hadn't it?
Yeah. Then he fell over 4 out, didn't he?
Inferring on the first circuit that, well, you know, maybe Hard Race Scotland didn't fancy it today, but solid last. Now, at that point, if he'd have let a bit of rain out on Marie's Rock, I'm not saying really smack her and get after her, just give her that half furlong of, he would probably have got far enough ahead to have won the race. But he obviously made a slight tactical error and didn't see. When you saw Cider Burley came in, he asked her then to quicken, but by then we were getting into the latter stages of a 3 mile race, and she was starting to.
She was never going to outstay him after the last.
No, and he was never going to come back at Cider Burley, who's pinging it at that point. So had he got that bigger lead, but like Nico had said, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And of course, what you got to remember is, had he gone hard when he came up to Florin Porter, and had he got 6-7 lengths clear, and let's say Cider Burley had picked him up on the line, people would have said, you know, she's a doubtful stayer. Why was he getting after her?
Yes, all right, yeah.
So that would be Nico's comeback there, and I think he's got a good point. But I do think if he'd gone, now the key to Marie's Rock is the quicker ground. She's had a quite light season. I think that she'll either go next week and try and retain her Scottish Champion Hurdle crown or the other mares race, or she'll go to Punchestown. Now, I think drop back to 2 mile 4, 2 mile 5 on quick ground. I'm not sure this mare is going to get beaten by anything. I think she's so good when she gets the conditions. She travelled like an absolute dream in this race.
She travelled the best, definitely. Yeah.
She does. When people say she's got winning form on soft, that may be true, but she would have still hated the soft ground that day. Yeah. This horse is a different animal when it can hear its hooves rattle. And, you know, Punchestown or whatever, I still think she's a top-class mare. I know she got beat on Saturday, but I think give her her conditions. You know, Punchestown 2 mile 3 on.
She won there last year, didn't she? She beat Epperton there last year.
She won over 2. She had the pace to win over 2 mile 3. Will they step her up there? Or will they go back for that Grade 1? If she does go back for that Grade 1, I don't see the likes of Epperton.
No, I think she's definitely good. I mean,
or whoever. I just don't see anything getting near her there. So I think she is an eye catcher for this season still. Because she's got options. And I wouldn't also rule out an early season flat campaign.
You never know with Hendo, do you, actually? Because he's done it
he's
before.
He's getting more and more like that.
Yeah.
This yard and these owners are more and more likely to make these top quality horses dual purpose now.
Yeah.
And she's a tool. So
that's right.
Marie's got beat on Saturday, but for me, became a bigger eye catcher than if she'd won, maybe. So I'm going to be steaming in, and I think there's money to be made on Marie's Rock. So she's a confident eye catcher. I know she got beat. We can sit here and say what Nico should have done all night. He's got beat by one of the toughest stayers we've seen for a long time.
Yeah, right battler. I mean, definitely. I mean, I would put you off her at all. I just think she's she got beat at Cheltenham. That was a farce of a race where they literally crawled round when Honeysuckle won it. The two of them were in the lead all the way, and that race wasn't run to suit her. So whereas this race was run at a good pace all the way, really did suit her. So hence why she came there on the snaffage. I wouldn't put you off her definitely at Punchestown in the right race. I think she'll have a great chance. Right, I suppose we better go leave it right to the end for the end race. Funny enough, I think this is a decent bumper, and there'll be lots of novice hurdle winners coming out of this race. And the two I'd like to take out of it, not the first two. I tipped a horse called Hastings. I don't know how you really pronounce it here. This horse won two soft ground bumpers in France, and under a double penalty at Uttoxeter, was given let's say a shade to do, and was a tad unlucky when it comes second. And there was elements of proof. I think this horse was unlucky again on Saturday. Followed the Nichols horse, who kept hanging and kept getting in his way down the back straight, and in the home straight he got hampered a little bit there as well. Eventually got out and was just one pace. This horse wants soft ground, and bearing in mind by the end of the day on the Saturday it was near a good ground. To actually finish as close as he did, he ran a cracker. So he was my first eye catcher, and the other eye catcher has to be Bowen's Park. I've had him on my radar before because he was very good at Warwick on his second run, but his third run on ground too fast, he hung and everything at Newbury behind as luck goes. This horse was very unlucky actually on Saturday. I do think if the race was on soft ground on Saturday, I do think Hastings would have won, and I do think on Saturday this horse should have won, Bowen's Park. Lovely novice hurdle. I'd certainly chase prospect. These two horses are horses to follow for novice hurdles next year. We spoke off air that perhaps they might not be graded company. I still think Hastings definitely has in soft ground. I think he could definitely prove graded company, and I think this race will be one that throws up 3 or 4 at least novice hurdle winners for next season. The first half a dozen.
Yeah, interesting race. Anybody who's in the Trackman service, the HFC Trackman service, would have been on Bowen's Park at 33s. It was a very confident selection and ran a cracker. Now, I'm telling you, Judge, I spoke to the guy on Sunday morning and he was fuming with the ride given to it, that it should have been outside and got it galloping. You watch the replay, when he does get clear, Richard Patrick makes a lot of ground on the front three in the last... Not even half furlong, the last, quarter furlong. Yeah. And you're sort of watching it thinking if he got that going. Now, that horse had won at Warwick under a penalty. You've always got to follow these bumper horses when they are. There's plenty of ones that win and go 5-4 favourite for the second bumper and finish 5th. It's not easy giving weight as a young, experienced horse. But that Bowen's Park went to Warwick under a penalty and really ground it out on heavy ground. Then went to Newbury, got caught in... a tactical race, didn't pan out, went there, very impressive. And I like the two of them. I can see where you're coming with the Hastings. I thought, you made the point that Bowen's Park got caught in a pocket on the inside and Hastings stayed wide and he got caught. So, maybe they should have come up the middle, I don't know. But, Florida Dreams won the race. I think it's a solid... This bumper can often disappoint the following year, and it's very much the lesser of the two festival bumpers, and the Irish don't come over with the top horses. But it's got a strong look to it this year. Yeah. I know that the 5th horse, Paul Lafield, there was a big word for Davy Russell's last ever ride, and they thought that was a seriously decent bumper horse. So the fact that Bowen's Park and Hastings and Florida Dreams for the hunting have beaten that, I think suggests they're decent. Yeah, and I think Bowen's Park, whatever he does as a hurdler, looking at the size of him and the way he moves, I mean, he was bought to go over big fences, wasn't he? And I wonder what they'll do next year, whether they'll have a novice hurdle year with him or whether they'll go straight. We'll see. But they're both interesting prospects and a race that the rides didn't quite work out in big fields with bumpers where they're moving all over the place. You can get in trouble.
Absolutely.
But, they both got in the money. That was the main thing, Judge.
That's right. I don't think we've got long left on our part, so I think I'm going to... 10
seconds.
I'm going to say, be lucky all. Check them out in your tracker. Yeah. And we'll find you a few more winners next week. See ya.